And so, where's that money going to come from? Well, It's not out there anymore because it's all invested in treasuries from foreign nations. So the Fed has to make money up out of thin air and buy those treasuries.
Okay, now what does that mean?
That's highly inflationary. That's what's called monetization. Go ahead.
Okay, just explain to those of us what that means with all those bonds available for sale.
Well, it means we have to pay debt. We have to roll over debt. We have to pay new debt, and they go to the Fed and say, look, we need another $300 billion. So the Fed snaps its fingers and transfers a $300 billion to the Treasury Department for treasuries that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. And it's immediately highly inflationary. It's very important. Most people in the financial world don't even know what I'm talking about. I mean, in this program, you find out exactly what these people are doing and what's going on behind the scenes and what the real reality of all this is, which means ultimate bankruptcy and hyperinflation if they keep it up. Now, the Fed is instructing banks to put excess capital on deposit at the Fed, and they're paying them interest for that, which they didn't do before. This is a new law that came in about a year ago. And they're parking the money there. And the Fed has told the banks, don't make any loans. Now, loans are off at about 18% year on year by banks. 90% of those loans are going to small and medium-sized businesses and individuals. So that means the business can't expand even if it wanted to. And that leads to unemployment. Unemployment's not going to go down. It's 21.9%, and it's going to go up this year, probably to about 23%. The following year, it'll go up over 25%, maybe to 30%. They're strangling the economy, and they're doing it deliberately for two reasons. Number one, to keep the banks solvent, and number two, the administration and the people, the power behind government, do not want an expansion of small business, which creates 70 to 90% of the jobs, because they want everybody working for the federal government in a Sovietized system called one world government. And that's what they're up to with this. Very interesting. Most people haven't picked up on that. And I love it when other contemporaries pick up on things because it makes me feel good. And anyway, I talked about possible conflict in the Middle East. Another stimulus package, probably around $400 billion. They've got to have it. If they don't have it, the states cannot pay unemployment insurance. They can't keep the kids in school. They don't have enough budget money for education. And that leads to another thing. They'll have to cut back on states now.
And how
They'll have to cut back on paying pensions.
And how many states are defunct right now? How many states are bankrupt now?
On the edge of 40.
40?
And I talked to my nephew. He just retired a year ago as a captain in a California city, a police department, a medium-sized city. And I said, you're getting $120,000 a year. I said, get prepared for about $35,000 or $40,000 because that's what's going to happen. So he went out and he got another job making $90,000 a year as an investigator for the district attorney's office. But the point is, in these states, that's what's going to happen. And another thing here is you don't want to be owning municipal bonds. They're at a high right now. If you own them, sell them. Because all of these municipalities are all going to have trouble. It's not of their own doing. Revenues are falling, and there's nothing they can do about it. And there will be default in a lot of municipals. So if you're in them, think about going to AAA-rated Canadian or Swiss treasuries, which are safer than U.S. treasuries and certainly safer than municipals. And if interest rates are going up, the value of bonds are going to be going down. So you don't want to be there. So think about it.
Well, if 40 states are bankrupt, that means that a lot of cities are going to be bankrupt too. So, I mean, that's not too hard to make that leap into the cities going into bankruptcy also, and the bonds being absolutely useless. But back to the 40 states. So what happens if 40 states go bankrupt? Do they just quit paying their bills and paying people, and all of a sudden, I mean, we've got chaos, unemployment chaos?
You could have that. I think what they'd probably do is they'd say, look, we're going to cut your salaries by 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70%. This way you can keep working, and this way we can stay solvent. We're not going to be able to continue to pay unemployment. We're going to have to lay off 30% of all the teachers, and instead of the class size being 21 kids or 15 kids, it's going to be 35 or 40. I've discussed it with my daughter because she's a teacher, and she said, no problem. I can handle 20, I can handle 40, but everybody's attitude is not as positive as that. The point is that there's going to be a lot of restrictions, but a state, which is like a country, California and New York, are in serious, serious trouble for big entities. There's many others that are as well. But California is going to come down with a resounding thump.
Well, have they already not? I mean, they've started paying IOUs. And then we didn't ever hear that they started paying real money again. I mean, that didn't make any news. What is the status of California? Are they just dealing in thin air right now with their people?
Yeah, they're in debt for over $30 billion. Never mind the debt that they're servicing. This is the debt that they don't think they can service, and they just recently asked the federal government for help. And if the federal government says no, then they're just going to have to continue to cut and cut and cut until they just can't anymore, and they can't service the debt, and then they'll go bankrupt. Incidentally, I left California in 1994 after living there for 36 years, and I knew then they were on the verge, and I knew you can't have a society where, like in Southern California, 35% of the workers are not paying taxes. And I'm talking about people who have their own little businesses, many of them, most of them for the most part, illegal aliens. But even individuals who own their own businesses are not paying taxes. And nationwide, this has become a disturbing phenomenon to federal and state government as well. And that is that about people who own their own small businesses, about 38 to 40% are not even filing. And that's going to get more widespread. It's just like you said earlier. How about next April when taxes are due? Are the people going to pay them? And the answer is they don't have the money.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the lines of people that were paying their property taxes before the end of the year, and just to remind people that, they are due. And it was amazing because, I mean, people were really scrounging to come up with this money. I mean, they were every dollar. It was scary to see how hard up people were to pay their property taxes. Imagine what's going to happen on April 15th. I mean, there's just going to be massive non-payment simply because not even the issue of whether or not they owe or not, but of those people that just cannot pay.
Well, I think those people who cannot pay, they, in all probability, will just have a lien put on their house until they sell it. I don't think the local entities are going to make a massive effort to put people out of their homes. But it's going to make it very difficult for governmental entities at the lower level, if you may, to continue to function. But they will. But it's going to be drastic, and so get ready for it. And that's why we have things such as dehydrated and freeze-dried foods, filters for water, methods of defending your family. That's your defensive position. You've got to have that. It's very, very important. And if you can afford to, you have things like Dr. Strauss's heart drops and beta prostate and all of the other things that are necessary to keep you healthy, because keeping you healthy is very important. And not all of you people that have wealth, it's got to be in gold and silver-related assets. I believe that by the beginning of April, gold will be $1,550 to $1,650 an ounce.
Wait a minute, say that again.
$1,550 to $1,650 an ounce, and it could very well be $2,500 to $3,000 by the end of the year.
Okay, you said $1,550 when?
By the beginning of April.
Okay. All right, and as long as we're on the subject of gold, what happened? We had a bit of a correction. I know it's up something like $25 today, but we had a bit of a correction. What do you think happened there?
First of all, it was normal, but it was expedited by our government. And they did it just before they thought where it was going. And where it was going was probably 12 to 12.50, maybe 13 and a quarter. And they hit it at around 12.24 and took it down like $120, which is nothing. Nothing. It's a bump in the road. You know, you got to keep your sights. You want to retain your wealth if you have wealth. It's got to be in gold and silver related assets on a long-term basis. We've been in this bull market for 10 years. Everybody's kept their wealth together. Everybody's made a pile of money for the most part. But I don't even consider that. My job is, I think, with people, is to preserve what they have. If they make a lot of money, that's superfluous.